Thank you for joining me, everyone. Charles Moscowitz here. Welcome to the program. Later today, I'll have on Ben Bergquan, who is a reporter investigating Antifa and who apparently was beaten up by someone in Antifa while he was out investigating. But right now, I want to comment briefly on a story that I think is much bigger than it's getting the attention it should be getting. And that relates to the use of hydroxychloroquine, in so much as that two of the world's most prestigious medical journals, the Lancet and the New England Journal of Medicine, published articles that claimed that or concluded that hydroxychloroquine had very little effect positively on COVID-19, and that even that it was possibly dangerous in some cases, implying that it might have led to deaths. And it now turns out that both of these publications have withdrawn these articles and have apologized for writing them. The British newspaper, The Guardian, researched the articles and exposed the fact that they were based upon data and research from this very shadowy group, Surgisphere, and that apparently Surgisphere consists of 6 employees, none of whom are scientists, one of whom is a female model and escort, one of whom is a marketing expert, and that the data that they gathered was completely unsubstantiated and fraudulent. And now both of these medical journals have apologized and they've withdrawn these articles. The problem is that those articles had a huge influence on the medical community and on the public awareness in terms of advancing this narrative that that hydroxychloroquine is not effective and that it's dangerous. And that research on hydroxychloroquine around the world and studies stopped because of these respected articles. Now they're starting to do the research again. Now we already know that President Trump and several other world leaders, perhaps, and people on the front lines take hydroxychloroquine. Usually a small dose over 10 days. It's a prescription. I don't know the numbers, but apparently there are doctors who take it as a preventative, as a protection against COVID-19. And maybe now we will finally get to the bottom of whether or not hydroxychloroquine can be a preventative for COVID-19. I mean, President Trump took it at the 10-day period, and he's in touch with doctors who felt that it would be. So the thing that troubles me about this is that, and again, I'm not a doctor by any means, but I see a very sinister element to this. There were hundreds of doctors who wrote a published letter saying that they were using hydroxychloroquine effectively with their patients and even as a prophylactic, which is in advance. And I think that what will happen ultimately is that we are going to find out finally that hydroxychloroquine is a good preventative. It consists of quinine, which has been used since the 19th century as a preventative for various viruses and malaria, and that it is a perfectly effective and good product to use. Not 100%. There are medical problems associated with it in very rare cases. It is not the kind of thing you should use except under doctor's supervision with a prescription, like any other drug. It's a serious drug. But it's going to become more normal for people to get the prescription and take the 10-day dose as a way of protecting themselves from COVID-19. And I think this is already being done in several countries, including Turkey, and my understanding Italy is using it, and several South American countries are using it. Israel is using it. And I think Israel actually shipped a lot of it to the Gulf states so that they could use it. And it is being used around the world. India is using it. But in this country, it's politicized. The establishment has politicized it. And again, I see something very sinister about this. It's strictly an opinion, but I think that there are two things going on here. First of all, on the surface, they don't want to give credit to hydroxychloroquine because President Trump has called for it to be used. And he did so very early on in the pandemic, right around the time that people were starting to lock down. And if Trump wants it, it must be bad. I mean, the media reacted, oh, this is just quackery, Donald, as they say, orange man bad, anything Trump says. But in a more sinister thought, people like, Anthony Fauci and others, and the sort of the establishment, if you will, the drug companies, they want to see, and political figures, particularly the enemies of Trump, people who don't, let's just say they don't want to make America great again. They want to see this pandemic prolonged. There's no end to this. I'm trying to reach my own state of Massachusetts, the health department. I'm trying to reach the city of Boston health department where I live, asking them if they'll come on with me and talk about how long this thing is going to go on. I mean, our state is in a condition of emergency. We are being told to stay in. We have to wear this cloth on our face when we go outside. A lot of people around me are terrified. They won't leave the house and washing and this. And, I want to know what the status of this is and how long they expect this to go on. None of them will get back to me. None of them want to talk about it. And the figures that come out are very choppy and are not put into the proper context. And it makes me think that there is an agenda afoot to prolong this thing as long as possible, because it'll hurt Trump, because it'll hurt the economy. I mean, small businesses are already suffering, particularly black businesses, because now they have the double whammy in the inner city of the COVID shutdown and looters and burners coming in and destroying their business. And I think that this is a way to stop and to defeat Donald Trump. You can look at the Drudge Report, which is a mouthpiece of this establishment, whoever it was, or the New York Times or the Nightly News, and you'll just see, and it has been the case since he took office, since he was elected, every day attacks, and trivial attacks too, on him, and it just is beating along and wearing away. And I think that it is a real and it is an ugly war that even includes tanking the economy and hurting people and making people fearful and locked in. Now we're supposed to think that we're all racist, and that to be black in America is like the equivalent of having been a Jew in Nazi Germany in the 1930s. It's that kind of stuff that's being promoted. Meanwhile, there they are trashing black businesses, killing black people in the city with their shock troops, of course, which they deny having anything to do with. And, their candidate for president, besides being corrupt and besides being a little bit on the elderly side in terms of cognitive ability, has a long history of racism. He comes from a southern state that, where he advocated segregation for years. Yet they're going to push, the racist canard against Trump. And younger people are stupid enough to fall for it. They're out there. Fine. I support going out and rallying against police brutality. I think that's good, important. But they're being used. They need to understand that, don't get sucked into this, establishment narrative that somehow this means this, in one weird and circuitous way, must translate into a criticism of Donald Trump, who, by the way, has been the best president of black people. Anyway, those are my thoughts. I think that this hydroxychloroquine thing is and should be a huge scandal. This isn't an accident that America's two most prestigious medical journals, New England Journal of Medicine and The Lancet, published phony reports. I think it's probably the first time in their history that they've done it. They've gotten caught. They've withdrawn the articles. They've apologized. this is a big scandal and should be. And it has everything to do with it being the tip of the spear in terms of this establishment attempt to keep us fearful and keep us sick. And I think that it's not an accident. I'm sorry, but they know better. Anyway, thanks so much for watching, everyone. Charles Moscowitz,